Hello, BookTube. Learned flightless birds soar across the internet. Your Daily Penguin. And in case you're wondering, that opening verse was a haiku. This is an ancient Japanese verse form that has 5 syllables in the first line, 7 syllables in the second line, and then 5 syllables in the third line. Ideally, it paints a picture, very minimalistically. Ideally, each line is a thematic whole of some kind or other. Ideally, the haiku will play some tricks. It will get you to think. It will maybe misdirect you a little. It's in the haiku that I just recited to you, for instance. The first line has a little bit, for English readers, has a little bit of a visual shift because we're not accustomed to the word learned. It looks like learned, and learned would throw off the rhyme scheme. The word is put in there specifically to put you up on the balls of your feet. And then the second line, the first line is a description, stands on its own. The second line seems to contradict the first line because the birds that were called flightless are soaring. And the third line is Your Daily Penguin, designed to bring it all home and make it make sense, to take the two illusions of the first 2 lines and sort of thread an insight through them. And it's brilliant, and I wrote it myself. And it connects with today's Penguin, which is the Penguin Book of Haiku. This is a collection that was put out it was translated and edited by Adam Kern, and this came out so recently that we may have actually seen it on this channel. May have seen it arrive in the mail. This came out in 2018. We were talking every day in 2018. So it's possible. This is the next Penguin in our slow waddle of the penguins across that back wall. And it's just a gigantic collection of haiku across centuries. Adam Kern translates these things very well, and then, but mainly backs out of the way. The back of the book, I don't know if you'll be able to make it out. The back of the book is a poet by poet and verse by verse slight explication, but his point in his introduction, his main point, is correct, which is that you shouldn't need that for haiku, even in translation. You shouldn't need that. He points out in his introduction is very good, if I remember correctly. He points out that haiku is a worldwide embraced verse form that even children can do. That it's a lot of fun, but that there are different levels of expertise. The haiku, I will not title it. The haiku that I opened this video with is what we would call an amateur haiku. I just did it to show some of the guiding principles of doing haiku. You want the lines, each line, to kind of sort of have its own modular unity. Like, for instance, soar across the and then break to the internet would not be as graceful as soar across the internet, Your Daily Penguin. You want a haiku to be a little bit thought-provoking. You want it to unsettle the reader just a little. You want that particular, I'm sure that the Japanese have a word for it. I know the Germans probably have a word for it. It's probably 50 letters long. That particular shift of perception is what you want in a haiku, where you have laid a scene of what something is, but you slightly pull the rug out from under your reader's feet with a comment on that thing. I invite you to try it yourself. If you've never written a haiku, if you're one of the only people in the world who's never tried his hand at writing a haiku, I invite you to try, because it really does make you aware of the parsimony of language in a way that, for instance, Petrarchan sonnet, you also have to count syllables, but it isn't quite the same because you have a lot more room to maneuver. A haiku, as one, I don't think Adam Kern mentions this, but one great expert on haiku centuries ago wrote that it really is the art of pulling things out, of excluding things. I love that description because that you will find that is true. I would advise, as a kind of writing exercise, if you want, to set yourself a thing that you will convey in haiku. The bigger the better, as the thing goes, and see if you can do it in 5 syllables, 7 syllables, and then 5 syllables. It takes a lot of work, a lot more work than it looks to do it well. It doesn't take much work to do it poorly. But that is your Penguin for today. It's the Penguin Book of Haiku. This is a fantastic poetry anthology. I love it. go back to it all the time. I think right now it's the only haiku anthology that I have. And I admit, you know, I admit that I don't spend a lot of time in this book at any one time. I dip often, but not for long periods of time. I don't think it's controversial for me to say that reading 100 haikus in a row kind of blunts the effect they're supposed to have. I think reading more than 10 in a row kind of blunts the effect. They're supposed to be almost aphoristic observations of a moment, of fleeting emotion, of a fleeting shift of perception. I thought things were one thing, and now I think they're another, or now they look like they could be another. It's a wonderfully delicate thing to do, and so I treasure this volume, but I don't spend the kind of concentrated front to back time in it that I do in, for instance, many of the other volumes that we mentioned, Anthony Trollope or George Eliot or whatever. But that's your Penguin for today. It's actually a very, very good haiku anthology with a good introduction and just the right approach. Loading the pages of this thing, it's got woodcuts as well in there, but loading the pages of this thing with footnotes at the bottom would kill it. But putting them at the end so that if you want to know more about the poet and you want to know more about the spirit involved in the poems, you can consult it. You can do that, but you don't have to. You shouldn't have to. I'm very glad of that decision. So your Penguin today is a recommend. And it comes out of the blue, of course. It's one of the only Eastern works of literature that we've ever seen on the Daily Penguin so far. And here it is mid-July. So who knows? Maybe we'll hit a vein of these. Maybe there'll be another one tomorrow. Who knows? I'm intentionally not paying much attention. I'm intentionally just going with these shelves the way they are in a forward momentum for the Daily Penguin. I am paying attention after the fact because I want this to be a pretty definitive overhaul of this shelf when I'm done with it. But for now, that's your Daily Penguin. It is the Penguin Book of Haiku, and it comes with a fairly rare urging on my part to not only try some haiku. There are, I'm sure, websites and apps that would give you a haiku a day, and that's just the way they should be experienced. I'm sure that they exist. I'm sure that if you went on your favorite app store, you could find a daily haiku app. But not only that, but to try it yourself. It's a very different thing to if I were to say, you know, you should try dactylic hexameter, or you should try a Petrarchan sonnet. Try writing a Petrarchan sonnet. That's a very different undertaking. But haiku can be tried by anybody, and it's fascinating to do so. So I'm going to wrap this Penguin up with that, and I will be back with another Penguin tomorrow, I hope. So I'll see you then. Thank you, BookTube.